Hi everyone. I will be summarizing chapter 7 in Johnston's book, and where he discusses his conceptual views of behavior that is under the skin. He uses Skinner's conceptual arguments and the mentalist view to argue that not all behavior are equal, but stimulus, control, consequences, and reinforcement are critical in the operant behavior conditioning. To understand the meaning of creativity as a behavior contingency, he refers to creativity as a thing that we all possess, and labels are placed on behavior to focus purely on the interest of the individual behavior and not on the environment. He states that no evidence has supported the claim that creativity is a physical phenomenon. Johnston states that to accept the mentalist premise that creativity is part of the novelty, we must also believe that creativity is based on the way we feel under certain conditions or circumstances. We must also accept that the premise that mentalists view that behavior is a mental process. Johnson states, as we have seen such strategy is not only unnecessary, but the methodological challenges and fraught with conceptual pitfalls. Johnson believes that we can refine our agenda to the reference we want it to be when we label creativity as a behavior and we use words to describe our feeling that is learned. He states that a part of the controlling and our words identify the sources of control over the behavior stimulus, just like when we use words to identify other behavior such as walking and eating, and which are controlling stimulus and direct our movement and verbal responses. Johnson believes that creativity is subjective. It can mean different things to different persons, and creativity does not provide the exactness like the operant behaviors. He refers to a friend who shows you the painting he made. You complimented him, but soon after you found out that the painting was a copy of another person's work. The proper behavior would to retract your compliment, or if the artists are knowledgeable about the creativity, they will bring more refined evolution with the familiarity of histories of painting. They are less likely to incline their labels to your friend's painting as creative. He believes that individuals may use labels of behavior to help individuals when we do not have extensive knowledge in the uncreative behavior or unaware of the creative aspects of behavior. Johnson states that the knowledge is essential in labeling creativity because of its subjectivity. Johnson states that we tend to label behavior when we are not fully aware of the verbal description, or it is not enough to limit verbal language effective use in labeling creativity in everyday conversation. Johnson believes that how we use conversation affect the objectivity of creativity. Johnson states that our conventional verbal practices fail to provide good reason for supporting the creativity that is distinct in human nature. And he believes that operant behavior really does not have a reinforcement. In this scenario about the BCBA experience with the student and classroom teacher, he demonstrates the discrimination process when the teacher tries to change the behavior response in the behavior response in one behavior but ignores the other. This scenario draws attention to the discrimination process. and plays a central role in experimental behavior process, and it also makes the behavioral response less effective. Furthermore, the nature of creativity makes it very difficult to reinforce. Johnson stated that to reinforce creativity, you would have to reinforce the person, which makes it not only strategically misleading, but technically impossible. Johnson also discusses malice and afterthought. A person convicted of a crime in a criminal case, the prosecutor will look for the intent of the crime. He mentioned that the intent is not a physical phenomenon, but a cultural one. He believes to base your facts on purely mental process. Johnson points out that the challenge to ambiguity, intent of behavior, and he believes the way to avoid intent is to focus on the root of the deed. Johnson states that people generally accept behavior that is trustworthy, but often avoid blame. He described a person a little bashful when he receives a reward. He also described these behaviors that are socially. He believes that he described these behavior as social reinforcers. He also believed that the environment that is responsible for the response and not the person. He made the contrast to the person who has a mental illness and commit a criminal act, and one who does not have mental illness. He also stated that a person who commits a crime and shown to be mentally ill or fail to recognize right or wrong consequences of his action, the law accommodates the situation with options such as pleas and sentences. The operant behavior supports environmental influences, unlike the mentalist who believes that the person's mind is responsible for his action. He also looked at conscience. According to Johnson, just as we are taught to be responsible for our actions, we are also taught to be guilty or ashamed when our behavior falls short. And he believes that our parental training has reinforced our histories in reinforcing our behavior that has shaped our conscience. Certain behavior requires punishment. Thank you for listening.